Chapter 17. Joys and Sorrows, Partings and Reunions. It turned out Guan Yu had fallen asleep with her head resting lightly on my left shoulder. I'd meant to wake her, yet I hesitated at the sight of her peaceful sleeping face, overcome with a rush of melancholy. Could it be that my shoulders were my most charming feature? Two girls had leaned on them now. Du Feiyu weeping her heart out and Guan Yu fast asleep. At least Guan Yu hadn't soaked my shoulder with tears and snot. Still, it was an undeniably intimate pose. I could feel her soft, steady breathing, and from the corner of my eye, I caught an unobstructed glimpse beneath her collar. I swore it was the first time I'd ever seen a woman's undergarments. My gaze lingered, utterly fixated, unable to look away. What am I thinking? I already have you. I quickly turned my head and squeezed my eyes shut, reminding myself to look away from what was improper. I couldn't be unfaithful to her. Yet a voice echoed in my mind, tempting me, just one more glance, only one, giving in to the urge. I told myself I would take one last look before waking her, for fear she might catch a cold. That was the plan. I opened my eyes again, greedily drinking in the hidden view beneath her collar, lost in the moment for over 10 minutes. I was so entranced I didn't snap out of it until the train announced its arrival in Longjiang. I instantly averted my gaze and let out a long breath, quietly guessing Guan Yu was a 34C. I'd definitely gotten more than I bargained for this trip. I turned to check if you had woken up, only to meet her cold stare. She was fully packed, slinging her school bag over her shoulder and standing in the aisle, watching me. Her frigid eyes were tinged with sorrow. When she saw me looking back, she turned away and walked off without a word. Disaster never comes alone. I hastily shook Guan Yu awake, grabbed my art bag, and raced after Du Feiyu. The train pulled to a stop, and crowds surged toward the exits. By the time I pushed my way outside, she had already left in a taxi, leaving me standing alone in a daze at the station entrance. The college entrance examination marked the start of our summer break. A week later, we had to return to school to estimate our scores and fill out university applications. I called Du Feiyu over and over, desperate to explain that it had all been a misunderstanding, but she never answered. Eventually, her phone was switched off entirely. When I got home, my family had prepared a feast of my favorite dishes: crispy fried pork strips, tomato scrambled eggs, and 3 fresh vegetable stir-fry. My father pulled cold beer from the fridge, saying we should celebrate the end of my exams with a few drinks. Staring at the meal spread out before me, I felt no appetite at all. I suddenly noticed my mother was missing and asked my father where she'd gone. He stayed silent, took a sip of strong liquor, and pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. I unfolded it, and 5 bold black characters stared back at me. Divorce agreement. Divorce? It couldn't be true. My parents bickered nonstop, small quarrels every other day and bigger fights in between, but never enough to end their marriage. And it had happened during those 2 days I'd been away for the exams. I refused to believe it. I shot to my feet and demanded an explanation. My father urged me to sit, then told me their relationship had been broken long ago. They'd clung to this unhappy marriage all for my sake. They'd agreed to divorce a month prior, waiting only until my exams were over to avoid distracting me. I shouted at him through tears. Why did you let her go so easily? Why didn't you beg her to stay? My heart was already in shambles, crushed by one misfortune after another, and no one could have endured such blows. My father's eyes glistened with tears as he drained his glass of liquor in one gulp and said quietly, "She's had someone else for a long time." I fell silent, all anger fading away. I lay in bed that night, wide awake, until 4 in the morning. After hearing the truth, I could no longer blame my father. He was a victim too. Nor could I fault my mother. Everyone had the right to pursue their own happiness. Was I the one at fault? What had I done wrong? I lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and swallowed the smoke down into my lungs. The sharp, burning sting calmed my racing thoughts. I replayed everything that had happened in the past few days, each tragedy enough to break me. I'd once believed life was full of sunshine, but now my world had turned pitch black. Where had all my hope gone? I'd sworn never to let the people I cherished slip away from me. But could I truly keep that promise? For the first time in my life, I doubted myself. I had no idea how I survived that week. I never called my mother, knowing it would be pointless. All I could do was stay by my father's side and comfort him. By Sunday night, I remembered we had to submit our university applications the next day. I faced the harsh truth that I would likely disappoint my father, and that Du Feiyu was still furious with me. I was the very last student to arrive at school. Most of my classmates had already finished their forms and left, including Du Feiyu. In a way, I was relieved. I had neither the heart nor the strength to explain myself to her just then. I simply checked her application choices and copied them down, planning to make things right once we were both in Harbin. I'd deal with my exam results later. I wanted to put everything aside and be left in peace. Half a month later, the scores were released. Though I'd prepared for the worst, I was still crushed to see my total score, 379. Du Feiyu had been admitted to her dream university as planned, while I failed the entrance exam without a single surprise. That night, I called her, and to my shock, she answered. I congratulated her on getting into college. She said only one sentence, "I'm leaving on the 10th of next month, early morning." Then she hung up before I could reply. I pondered her words for a long time, clinging to a sliver of hope. Perhaps she'd forgiven me. Hope still lingered, for there was one final round of supplementary university admissions. I headed to school the next day to check the list. Quite a few schools were open for adjustment with my score, yet only one was located in Harbin, a branch campus of a fine arts academy, not the one Du Feiyu attended. It didn't matter, as long as I was in the same city. I could visit her every day. Without hesitation, I filled out the supplementary application, finally feeling a flicker of stability. My father had always been endlessly understanding and kind, much like myself. He told me the name of my school didn't matter. What mattered was being a good person. I told him everything that had happened between Du Feiyu and me. He offered no harsh words, only saying, "You're an adult now, free to make your own choices. Just don't live to regret them." On the morning of the 10th, I headed to the train station early. The bound for Harbin departed just after 6, and the terminal was packed with travelers. I spotted Du Feiyu among the crowds, surrounded by her relatives seeing her off. I held back and didn't approach. Boarding began, and passengers filed through the ticket gate. I watched her walk past, then rushed to a waiting room window to gaze outside. She turned right after exiting the gate and caught sight of me as she passed my window. With tears in my eyes, I traced the Chinese character "wait" onto the glass. She met my gaze, gave me a soft smile, then boarded the train. That was the last time I ever saw her smile, etched forever in my memory. The sun rose gently on my walk home, and for the first time in weeks, I felt my hope return.